We could do the what's next right here.
Right here, a live one.
All right. We're going to probably condense this down to about 20 minutes today, so we'll have coordinators right after that. We'll start with a quick statement from Coach, and we'll jump into questions.
It's great to see everybody. Just start out real quick with Scout Team Players of the Week this last week. Dylan Spencer on the defensive side of the ball and Jackson Hildebrand on the offensive side of the ball. I know y'all probably were watching the Big 12 press conference. I saw some of you on there. Fired up, man. I have a lot of respect for Kalani. I think it is the best two teams in the conference playing each other. Whenever you look at what we've done on the field and the different teams that we've played, I'm really excited. Cowboy Stadium is one of my favorite places. I have some incredible memories. I think I have 13 or 14 games as a head coach in that stadium. And, I was telling the players yesterday whenever we met, putting the West Virginia game to bed that, had them raise their hands. There was a good number of guys that have played in that stadium, that are Texas high school kids that, that have won big games in there, and then a lot haven't. And so I was telling them, man, it's going to be incredible when we walk in there, the energy. I know that I'm looking forward to setting a new attendance record, because you're going to have two of the best fan bases in the country, being Arlington, and I know the Red Raiders are going to show up, and I can't wait to be a part of that. We'll be ready to go. So with that, questions?
Coach, you were held to 5 field goals in your first meeting. How has this team grown since that meeting?
We were frustrated. We had a couple drops in the end zone, and then you also go back, I think that next week, not that this changed anything, but the committee said that we weren't scoring enough in the red zone. I think we've been one of the best teams in the country since that statement in the red zone, especially the last 2 games. But it comes down to execution. They're really not doing anything different than executing at a really high level. And, we do call the red zone the no stone zone, just to kind of mess with Stone. And I told him, I said, I don't want to see him, inside the 20. I'd rather, unless he's kicking extra points. And that's kind of been we've even put that on our plan to win, instead of the red zone, touchdowns in the red zone, touchdowns in the no stone zone. And so I think execution is the biggest part.
With ESPN lobbying for the SEC, leaving Big 12 teams out of the graphics, Fox lobbying for the Big 10 and their 24-team playoff, who needs to be lobbying other than the commissioner for the Big 12 so more than one Big 12 team gets into the college football playoff?
Yeah, I think it's really important, people that understand football as a whole. I think no matter what, I think Josh Pate does a great job. I think he's a guy, I wouldn't be mad if he was the commissioner of college football. I know he would take the job and do a great job. But it's really, when you're talking about that, it really is. Like, I've even sent texts to different reporters or different media people that I know of, like, you've got this logo, this logo, this logo, and they're leaving out whether it's us or BYU. But whenever you look at the numbers, we have better numbers than teams that they're putting up there. So, it's definitely driven. What we need to do is we need to take care of business on Saturday, and I know it's going to be a great game. I do think it's 2 of the best teams in the country playing, and I would sit there and look at, especially whenever you're talking about the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12, the teams that are in the championship. I think every one of those teams deserves to be in the playoffs, no matter what happens, on the field on Saturday.
You said this team is a special team. Why do you believe that this team still has an additional gear for the Big 12 playoffs and for the playoffs?
One, I think we're our quarterback's feeling as good as he's felt all year long. And whenever Barron plays well, we play at a really high level. He brings so much energy. I think that we can execute at a different level. We're getting close, but we still can execute. And, we only had 2 pre-snap penalties this last week, but staying away from the pre-snap penalties, keeps us ahead of the chains. And then, defensively, and it's the same way with BYU. It's going to come down to, you look at both of us. We're a plus 13 in the turnover margin, and they're a plus 12 in the turnover margin. So I think if we continue to do that, taking the ball away, then we can play at a different level.
Coach, can we get an update on Bailey and Mitch?
Yeah, we feel good about everybody. We did our corrections yesterday and our walkthrough, and they were all out there doing all their stuff, so they didn't miss any of that. Barron was out there doing all his stuff. So we feel with this week that we should have everybody that played against West Virginia play, against BYU, and really being in a good spot as far as some guys feeling better and better.
And then going back to even your Cedar Hill days, how many times did you play opponents twice, like perhaps again in the playoffs? And is there any challenge with beating a team twice?
Yeah, it's hard to beat somebody twice, and we'll be reintroduced to BYU tomorrow in our team meeting. And, one thing that I think is really important, your team's why is very important on beating somebody twice. We have, I think I played Geyer a couple of times, and we went 1-1 and then went 2-0 against them. My son keeps reminding me of year 4. And year 4, we beat DeSoto in double overtime in the regular season, and then beat them pretty bad in the playoffs in the fourth round. And so we've done that. I've had some success, and then I go back to 2019, and we played OU twice and, couldn't get it done. 2 great games. And so just kind of really feeding off that experience of what we could do. I asked the coaches yesterday in our staff meeting, to really dig in to the first game of where we missed the mark on some stuff, where they could take advantage of us, where we could take advantage of them, and then, watching their last 3 games that they've played with TCU, Cincinnati, and UCF.
And then a quick signing day question. You mentioned all the early enrollees. What's the advantages of having so many early enrollees? And then what's the likelihood of a true freshman, being able to have a positive impact his first year being an early enrollee?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those deals that Jacoby was a little bit different last year. It happened later. But, if Cam Dickey doesn't early enroll, he doesn't play as fast as he did as a freshman. I don't think it is extremely hard if you're not already here and going through spring football to have an impact on the team. But we do feel like, I can't wait to talk about him on Wednesday. I've got a group text with him, and I sent him a text and said, man, I can't wait till Wednesday. The biggest thing whenever you're sitting there and you're looking at the roster limits and you're looking at stuff like that, of getting as many guys in here for spring football. So, we'll have 17 new players, not counting the transfers. We'll have 17 new players that are, true freshmen that go through spring football. They'll be in the weight room. They'll be on our training table. They get a great opportunity to, create some mass and get stronger and learn the system. And so I think, it's trended that way, and we've had good numbers, like half the class. I think from here on out, you're going to have a larger and larger percentage of your class be mid-years.
Go Emily and Tide and Nathan.
So what's funny is you just echoed it a few minutes ago. It's hard to beat the same team twice. We hear it every time there's a rematch. But when you actually look at the data, I think it's like 2,000, there have been 35 Power 5 conference title rematches. 22 of them are actually sweeps. Only 13, I think, have had flipped winners.
I love that data.
Oh, it took me forever to calculate
I love it. I'm telling you, I'll take it. I want to be on the right side of it.
So hearing that, what about it, I guess, psychologically has that over-looming cloud of, it's hard to beat the same team twice when technically the data says otherwise?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, it's kind of the maturity of your team. Sometimes I think whenever you've beaten somebody, you just think, oh, it's going to happen, and you've got to be really wary of that. Mac Brown sent a text to Josh Cochran. He sent a text to me, after the game, and he sent a text to Josh Cochran and Coach Cochran said, hey, do you have any advice? And he said, you know, and he asked about playing a team twice, and he actually said it's not about who you're playing, it's about the standard that you play at. You know, we talk about that all the time. And so, you know, yesterday I actually screenshotted what Josh sent me and put it up, you know, on the team, as far as like the one thing that we do every single Sunday is we go through our plan to win, but we also say the good and the bad, like the things that we did well in the game and the things that we've got to do better. And one of the things as a whole, I thought we played really hard, but I thought we could strain and play harder than what we did on Saturday. And so that's going to be the challenge, because the one thing about playing a BYU team, if you look at them, they're a very big physical team. I mean, like we talked about it the first time we played them, they're really big up front. They're really big at the linebacker position. They're really big at the quarterback position and the running back position. So just the strain and playing to our standard is going to, you know, help us hopefully turn out, you know, and be on the right side of that.
And I've got to ask, me asking is not helping the situation whatsoever, but it feels like these conference title games are being overshadowed by a lot of different sports news right now. In
Yep.
particular, the head coaching train that, I mean, is a hot mess, in all honesty. Moving forward, what kind of changes would you like to see, more particularly in regards to Lane Kiffin leaving a playoff program, as someone who's heading to a conference title game and will be in the playoffs?
Yeah, I was actually going back and forth yesterday with Mike Craven because he made some comments, and I understood his comments, but what I said to him was, all your comments are reactionary. You're not solving any of the problems, saying that we should move the portal to the spring. I don't want the portal in the spring. I want to know what my team is in January so I can create my team and what we did this last year and the chemistry and everything. And so you're just putting a Band-Aid over the problem until we address the calendar. So in my opinion, we all should have played August 23rd. So instead of week 0, we play, that's week 1. That would mean, with the buys and everything, the conference championship would have been played over Thanksgiving. So you get that out of the way. So now we know who's in the playoffs. And then it's a neat deal. Mike Leach said it. It's one of my favorite videos of all time. But playoffs have been going on for a long time, you know, and actually I've played 16 games 4 times, and guess what? It was over before Christmas because we played every 7 days. So if you were saying the first round was going to be played Saturday, and then the quarterfinals 7 days after that, semifinals 7 days after that, you actually could play the national championship on January 1st. And then the portal would open on January 2nd. So the season would actually be over. So until you do that, we're still going to have this. And then the other thing, nobody's going to want to hear this, coaching-wise, but I'm at a place that I'm going to be for the rest of my life, so I don't really care, you know. But if we're going to be like the NFL, to where everybody's saying that, in the NFL, there's a tampering for coaches also, and there's a penalty. And so, hey, if you're going to leave your team that's in the playoffs, maybe your team that you're going to is not eligible for the playoffs the next year. Maybe that changes some of the things. Or, hey, you're going to leave your team for the playoffs. Nobody from your past team or your team that you're coaching at can go to the team that you're going to. You know, that they're not eligible. They can get in the transfer portal, but they've got to go somewhere else. They can't follow you. Until there's some penalties in that, we're going to get the same thing over and over. I do think the biggest thing that we have to address, and TV's got to get behind this because they've already got this mapped out with the quarterfinals and all this stuff, we've got to push the calendar up, and we've got to get football out of the second semester. We're not supposed to be playing college football on January 19th. That should be over at the very worst of where it has been in the past. I still think that's too late, and the calendar can change that.
Go ahead, Kai.
You've mentioned that every week is the biggest week, but looking at the reactions that you guys had after the West Virginia win, it's pretty easy to say this is one of the more emotional moments in the season. How much do you lean into that going into this game?
Yeah, we're going to lean into it because the bigger the next step, the bigger the game, the more's on the line. I guess I'm a weirdo, man, but I love this time of year. I loved it. I could not wait. I will never forget. I asked Eddie Peach one time. He was a storied Arlington Lamar head coach. I think he is the second winningest coach at one single school. He won over 325, 326 victories at Arlington Lamar. I asked him, I said, when are you thinking about retiring? He said, whenever I can't get in the playoffs anymore. That I live for that. He said, maybe that sounds bad, but I do. I live for like moments of where the game means so much that if you win, you get another game, and if you lose, then the season's over, and that's kind of where we're at right now. So the bigger the game, to get to the next moment, the more pressure, but the more fun it is, and the more of a sense of urgency there will be.
And then going back to the coaching carousel vein, what is it about the fourth year of establishing a culture, and how valuable is it for athletic directors to invest into somebody for more than that 2 to 3 year span?
Yeah, I think it's really important because you've got to grow up a Sheridan Wilson and a Ben Roberts and a Coy Aiken and Horn and just the guys that we had, and then Jacob Rodriguez was my year 4 or 4 years with us. Baron Morton really. I mean, even though he was here before me, Chief Collins, Elder, I mean, like all those guys, Hayden Wingington, all those guys have been here. They don't know anything else. The way they speak, the way they think, the way they work out, the way they come into the building, that's just, they don't know anything else. That helps the new guys. They set the standard, and it's like, this is how it is here. And, they're the guys that help you enforce a lot of that. So it's really important. The longer you have that and the advantage you have going in the right direction makes a huge difference whenever you add your 17 mid-year freshmen. They're going to come in and, hey, this is the way we do things here. If you have such a really strong culture, then it helps you set the standard.
Goes Nathan, and we'll finish with Don.
What does this week kind of look like for you now that you have signing day mixed in with the Big 12 championship? Are you just kind of leaning on the game because most of the pre-work has already been done for signing day, or how do you kind of balance that out?
Yeah, I'm excited. We'll be up here at 6, really a little bit before 6, because we got some guys that will sign, their time, and so we'll get up here and we're going to celebrate it like crazy. I'm so excited about this class. We got some dudes coming in, but as far as like the schedule, we won't deviate from what we're doing. Like we met this morning, and our Tuesday schedule is the schedule we've used. Probably for the last 6 or 7 weeks, and Wednesday will be the exact same way. We'll use our indoor a little bit more just because we're going to be playing indoors, and and we're going to work our normal cadence, but we're also going to work our silent count because we do think it's going to be really loud in there. BYU will show up. I mean, y'all saw a lot of blue in Lubbock. There's going to be a lot of blue in Arlington. And so everything will be the same. Thursdays our normal walkthrough. Fridays be our fast Friday, and get ready to go. Get to the hotel and get ready for Saturday. And man, I'm fired up. It's 11 a.m. kick. We've played really well at 11 a.m. this year, and our guys feel like they're the best team in the country whenever you get to kick it off at 11 a.m.
And in terms of scouting for BYU, how much do you lean on the previous game that you already played? How much are you going from games they played after that? What's kind of the balance there?
Yeah, it's you're going back. I have not gone back to watch. I just finished UCF. I'm in the second quarter of Cincinnati. So with me, I will work my way back to our game. TCU be next, and the last one I'll watch is ours. The coaches are doing the same. I think it's a benefit for both teams. I mean, we've played each other, and we kind of know our strengths and weaknesses, and it's going to come down to, who can. I know that they're frustrated. They feel like they left a lot on the field, and we feel the same way. I mean, we kicked 5 field goals that day, and we want to try to get in the end zone. So there's going to be a really good balance between both.
Joey, since recruiting has changed and you address so many needs through the transfer portal these days, this high school class, was there even any position group or groups that y'all saw as a priority or a need to get, or is it simply trying to get 20 of the best players and kind of balance them fairly equally?
No, it's a pretty balanced class. Again, we feel like the offensive line and defensive line are always important. I think the offensive line is without a doubt more than any position in when you're recruiting high school, and once they get here, it's the most developmental position there is, and so you want to get guys in here that will be here and you could grow those guys. But it's kind of, I feel like it's a pretty balanced class.
Too early to say how many you think you'll be looking for in the portal this year?
No, I mean we're constantly. I mean that's the great thing about having a GM and a personnel staff, and Quentin Jordan is a big part of that because he's the guy that gets them in school. Our DFO and Huff's a big part of that with his background, and we've been talking about it, and just as much as getting ready to sign this class. I mean, we've got to be prepared. We don't want to be reacting, as far as like once we get to a point, and we've got to look. I mean, nobody has come to me on this team and said, hey, I'm getting in the portal or anything like that. But, you got to expect that over the next couple of weeks. There possibly could be some guys on this team. So you just got to be ready. I mean, we feel like it's going to be a smaller class, but, I said there was going to be about 10, and then all of a sudden some really good players kept saying yes, and all of a sudden there was a coach let go, and we were able to get the best defensive end in the country in David Bailey. And so I don't think it's going to be a huge class because we do have a lot of guys coming back, starting on both sides of the ball. I mean, I think we were counting yesterday. We'll have 7 starters, and it's really plus because of the running backs, the way they play. But I think we got 7 starters coming back on offense and 6 on defense. So it'll be a little bit smaller class than last year.
You want to throw a starting point number out there? Since last year you said 10 or 12. And
yeah, I would say probably, like, again, you're losing 3. You're losing 2 edges and a defensive tackle that are really, really good. So you definitely want to talk about that. So probably somewhere between 7 and 10.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
How we doing, folks? Doing great.
How's the green bean casserole?
It's good. Very good.
All right, who wants to lead us off there with? There we go.
What changes are you looking at making from the success you had from facing BYU in the first game to today?
Well, we're getting together. We already started a little bit before I came down here for this, as far as working on our game plan, and this is just another game, just like the 12 we've already played, in terms of going through the week and coming up with the best game plan that we can. And we're treating this as a new game. We played them a couple of weeks ago, but whether it's changes or similarities, we'll just try to come up with the best game plan we can for the situations that will occur in the game.
How are your emotions on getting to this conference championship, bringing this defense from where it was last year to heights of being a top 25 defense?
Well, all we've focused on is this collection of people on this team and this year's team. Anything that's happened in the past has been irrelevant to our approach and our process. We wanted to try to put together the best staff that we could, the best roster that we could for this year's team. I think we did a nice job of doing both of those things. The guys have bought in, worked hard, and so it's been a lot of fun to be a part of this process that we've gone through, and excited that we've still got ball games to play.
Coach, what's been the biggest surprise? Just looking at the regular season, obviously a lot ahead of the team, but over the course of the regular season, all the success the defense had, what was the biggest surprise?
I don't know if there's anything that has been a big surprise to me, to be honest with you. I just think that I'm proud of the approach that our guys have had from a day in and day out basis. They've been professionals in terms of, just taking care of their bodies, showing up, giving the extra time, studying on film on their own, learning the playbook, continuing to be open-minded and flexible to grow throughout the season. They've had a growth mindset, and it's just been great. And because of those things, I think that if you look at us from, certainly for me and for our staff, if we go back and look at, let's say, training camp, and then early in the season, maybe the first quarter, second quarter, now we're into the fourth quarter of the year, and just the growth that we've had as a group, the growth that we've had as a staff from a game planning standpoint, the growth that individual players have had from a technique and fundamental development, and their ability to win their one-on-one matchups, to finish with leverage. Just all those things, I think, are the things that stand out to me. And as coaches, we're proud to see the growth that we've had. It's been a lot of fun.
Coach, can you talk about the impact Pollock, Boyd, just all the transfer corners have had on this defense this year?
I think they've added a ton of value. We've got some guys that are playing at a really high level. I think they're understanding what to do and how to do it. I think Darcel McBath, our corners coach, does a great job with them in the meeting room. He does a great job with them on the field as far as technique and pre-snap awareness and key progression, all those things that you need to be able to react quickly to the plays that you're going to see. And then the guys in that room, all of them, guys that were here last year, guys that are new, have just done a great job, I think, of rolling up their sleeves every day, coming to work and having a great attitude, and they are playing their best football at the right time.
Coach, as you look at the previous game against BYU, you held L.J. Martin to just 36 yards and just 67 overall as a team. As the weeks have gone on, he's had carries to where he refuses to go down, but also his linemen will kind of push him forward for an extra 10, maybe even 15 or 20 yards. But is there a specific plan you guys plan to go about this in terms of containing him the way you did the first time out?
Specific plan, I mean, we're going to run our defense just like we run all year. I think we've been pretty good in stop and run. We've got different ways to do it: even front, odd front, different coverage structures. We'll try to devise the play calls to be the best that they can be for our guys to have success on Saturday. But he does a great job running the football. I think their offensive line is very well coached. They play hard. They're guys that want to try to outpopulate the defense at the point of attack, and so they want to finish runs with their offensive line and help those backs get that extra 1, 2, 3 yards, and that's something that we've got to be very aware of and conscious of this week. We've got to avoid giving up leaky yardage, so to say, and we've got to get knockback tackles, and we've got to push the pile back when we get in those situations, and if we can do those things, hopefully that'll help us in our run defense.
Coach, I know this becomes more prevalent as you get later in the year, but injuries and the balance of preparation with players being hurt at this moment in the season, and then also how to get them on the field to get them prepared for a matchup like this. What's the balance that you and your staff on defense kind of do to get prepared late in the season for games like this?
I think we do try to gauge that as we go throughout the year. I mean, the nice thing is when you run things consistently, there's an experience level that you gain from not only the games but also just from all the reps that you accumulate throughout the season and practice. So as you get that experience and that confidence as far as the guys knowing what to do and how to do it, because we see a lot of this, similar schemes week to week in the run game, passing game, and so at some point I think you can start to manage reps for guys a little bit individually or collectively, and we've certainly tried to be mindful of that. We're also in a situation, fortunately, it's probably one of the reasons we had a pretty good year and had some success, is that we've been able to stay pretty healthy. And when you are finishing the season with the same guys that you started the season with, my experience has been, typically those are the years where you've got a pretty good football team. And we've been blessed in that regard. And a lot of it, again, goes, I think, to the credit to our players for being intentional about taking care of their bodies and preventative maintenance in the training room, because it's a grind. It's a physical game. It's a long season against a lot of really good physical competition in the Big 12. So we're blessed that I think we can go out there and get some good work this week, but at the same time try to manage the volume.
Sheil, David Bailey, when he was in here the other day, was asked about factors that have enabled him to kind of take his game to a higher level this year. One of the things he mentioned was that I think last year at Stanford said it was more of an off-ball linebacker, and he said now he's in a better spot to actually pressure the quarterback. So when he got here, especially since it was late, how much thought or discussion was there on where and how you used him, or did you see him as an obvious fit for that wide side edge that he's been playing in?
Great question. I think when we evaluated him as he got in the transfer portal, the spot that he's playing for us is where we identified him at that point in time. So that's kind of been the decision that we went with from day one, and I think it's worked out pretty good.
What went into say you have him on the wide side versus Romello on the boundary? What are kind of the factors in deciding which guy better fits the profile for which of those edge positions?
Great question. There's a ton of similarities between those spots for us. And so the skill set that you're looking for at both of those positions, there's going to be a lot of carryover and flexibility. And David will come over and play into the boundary some at times for us. But I think that those two guys are in the right positions. David being a little bit longer and heavier guy, I think is better suited to play into the field. Romello, with his size, he's going to be matched up in the run game on tight ends a little bit more. We ask him to drop into coverage from his position, not often, but we do ask him to do that some, and I think that's a skill set that he possesses that fits what he can do well and help us with. And then, but like I said, the techniques that those two spots play, there are a ton of similarities. And the nice thing is both of those guys have the ability to rush the passer at a really high level, and they're on opposite sides of the ball. So that's been a good thing for us.
I got one more, actually. Since you mentioned dropping into coverage, that kind of reminded me. Big 12 as a conference seems really deep in tight ends this year. How would you compare the tight ends that you see in the conference week to week with maybe your recent experience, and how many good tight ends that you've seen in other conferences that you've been in?
I think I think every team has a 12 personnel package that they roll out there to where they can put two tight ends in the game at times. Maybe they don't do it a ton. It just depends on the team. But certainly every team that we plays bases out of 11 personnel at minimum, and they've got one tight end in the game. And I think all the teams that we have faced in the conference this year probably have a guy that's pretty well suited to be able to do the things they need him to do in the run game as a tight end, whether that's off the ball or inline tight end. And then also there's a lot of really good receiving targets at that position. And over the years, I think the tight end position just in general has evolved to a guy that's got the skill set to play on the perimeter a little bit more. That's I'm not saying anything that's not pretty obvious, I guess. But I think there's a lot of tight ends in this league that are really quality blockers and pass receivers. And I think that they're being used and utilized really well schematically by their coordinators. Comparison-wise for me, this being I was in one of the other Power 4 conference in the ACC, but this would be the league that's got the best group of tight ends that I've gone against for sure.
We'll finish with Collier.
Coach, Joey talked about looking over film the next few days of the last couple BYU games. With the success you guys had against Bear Bachmeier, how much of the last 3 games do you guys pay attention to as opposed to what you guys did so well against them the first time?
I mean, for sure, you want to you want to see what they've done last 3 ball games, and I think any week you have like a scouting report and a breakdown that you go through X number of games, whatever that may be, 4, 5, whatever the case may be, and then maybe the games that you're not pulling data from for hit charts and stuff like that, you still go back and you look at those non-breakdown games just to compare, hey, are we kind of on the right track? Are there some things that show up in maybe early season games that they've moved away from, or did they scheme certain plays for a certain type of defense? So you're always looking at those types of things, and this week's really no different from that standpoint.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it.
Coach, how has the way you called the game evolved since you last played BYU?
I don't know. I don't know if evolved maybe is the right word, but just trying to, play to our guys' strengths. Really more so the game planning process. Just try to put our guys in as good of situations as they can. I think at this point in the season now, especially with the amount of games that Barron's played, with him at quarterback, calling it for him, just the comfort level of really knowing who our guys are, what they do well, what our quarterback does well, and trying to highlight those things.
How has Jacoby and Cam helped you with that?
Yeah, I think those guys are just a great safety blanket that, whatever's going on, whatever the defense does, as long as those 2 guys are out on the field, you got a chance to run the football. And then they've just been a great addition to the passing game too, being able to create some easy explosives. And that's just that's a quarterback's best friend. Even in that last BYU game, we had one to Cam where checked it down to him. We ran 4 verts and they dropped 8, and he checked it down to Cam, and it ended up being an explosive play. So anytime you have guys like that are good with the ball in your hands, that helps you out on offense a ton.
As you look through the regular season, what was the biggest mistake that you've made this year, and how have you learned for this championship game?
Yeah, I think you learn something. I think every time you step on the field, every game, there's something that you pick up, something that you could have improved throughout your game planning process, and things that you wish you could have done, or things that you need to get better at. Looking back on, obviously the Arizona State game was our worst offensive performance. I think just maybe being a little bit too cautious, with a young quarterback early, and not just kind of cutting it loose and being a little bit more aggressive probably is the thing that I look back on that I wish you could do a little bit different, if you had a redo.
Coach, Caleb Douglas has been hot last month, and then last week had a great game. What do you think's been the key to his success?
Yeah, I think he kind of had the same, obviously I wasn't here last year, but kind of same deal. Maybe started off a little bit slow or wasn't utilized as much in non-conference, and then when Big 12 play kind of came, he really came alive. And so I think he's one of those guys as the competition gets better, as the games get bigger, he rises to the occasion. And so I think he's a guy that we'll continue to try to feature in the passing game. And the thing, it's funny, like UCF, Reggie had this great game where he got all these touches and scored 3 touchdowns, and the next week Caleb has a great game, has 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So and those guys are fired up for each other, whoever kind of is the hot hand that day. So it's a good group, it's a balanced group. I think that's probably one of the things, looking at our offense as a whole kind of over the course of this season, that I'm probably most pleased with is the ability to the ball. You look at the ball distribution between the 2 outside receivers, Coy, TC, the 2 running backs. We've been able to kind of spread the wealth and utilize all those guys throughout the season fairly evenly.
And then the offensive line has mostly been intact and healthy and played together. What kind of advantage is that, and what's the biggest strength of this offensive line that you see?
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I think as the season's gone on, our ability to, early in fall camp, we kind of got ravaged a little bit with our, our depth, especially with injuries at that position. And so, as the season's gone on, being able to get guys like Holden Hendricks back, Cash Cleveland, back and kind of in the mix, and those guys being guys that you can trust to put in the game. If you need be, like this past week, Howard kind of went down for a couple series, and we were able to move Will out and put Cash in, and you didn't miss a beat. And so those guys coming along has been huge. But keeping that starting five together, you get so much more camaraderie. The communication is so much cleaner. The more that those guys play together, they get a feel for how each guy, a double team, DC and Jacob Ponton, on a double team is a little bit different than Will and Howard on a double team. Just kind of the way that those guys work together. And so the more reps, the more, trust you have in the guy next to you, the better you're going to be. And I think strength-wise, I think those guys, man, they take a lot of pride in what they're doing. They do a pretty good job of kind of everything, really. We're running the ball at a pretty high level right now, protecting the passer at a pretty high level. There's obviously things that we need to get better at and continue to grow and improve. But overall, I think they're doing a great job kind of setting the tone for the offense.
Coach, McGuire and Barron both stated it out in West Virginia about the no Stone zone after Stone had those 5 field goals at BYU. The last 3 games, though, you guys have been really prolific in that area. How does it feel having that kind of momentum in an area you guys were struggling in, heading into playing this BYU team again that you did have those red zone struggles against?
Yeah, I think it's huge for our guys. These last couple of weeks that we've been able to get down there and finish in the end zone and not have to settle for field goals just gives them a lot of confidence going into this matchup. And I tell them, I told them in our unit meeting this Sunday, like, It's not anything. It's not any magical plays that we're doing. It's not anything crazy. It's you guys are just going out there and you're executing at a lot higher level than what we were in that BYU game. And so really the credit is to our guys for going out there and executing and making the plays. You get guys. They're winning their one-on-one matchups. We're blocking up the runs. How they're supposed to be blocked in the run game. Barron's seeing it. And even he had a little athleticism, extended the play, found Cam on the scramble drill touchdown this past week, so that was nice to see. It maybe not as athletic on the one he pulled and ran, but can't be perfect. But so those guys have just been doing a great job, and I think it does give them a lot of confidence going into this matchup. So it'll be a great challenge. I think we went over the analytics last night, and BYU's the 8th best red zone defense in the country, so it's a great challenge. They do a great job down there, so we'll have to have a great plan and go out and execute.
Take me through Lloyd's day on Saturday. I mean, probably not. You didn't expect to play him that much, but this is what it happened. So.
Yeah, definitely wasn't expecting to play him as much, and I'm sure he wasn't expecting to probably get as much time as he did. But I thought he did a great job. He was ready for the moment. The good thing is, because of the way we've had to practice with Barron kind of missing those Tuesday and Wednesdays, Mitch has taken the ones, and he's actually been the ones to take the 2 reps. So he's gotten work in practice, and was ready for his moment. I think the good thing about him is, if you guys have ever spent any time around him, he's as even keel of a dude as he is, as there can be. And so he goes out there, and the moment wasn't too big for him at all. He was just kind of like he is on a Tuesday quarterback meeting. He's the same guy, throwing touchdown passes out there as he is during the week. So I was proud of him. I thought he did a great job, and I know he was fired up to get out there and kind of show what he can do.
Anyone else? Don?
Following up on that, I forget which game it was, but at one point early in the season, Holden came in after Mitch in the last series or whatever. At what point did Lloyd's knee get to the spot where it's like, okay, he has full go, and if you need to put him in a game, he can go into a game? How many weeks has he been available?
Yeah, so I think that was the Oklahoma State game that Philly went in and threw that pass to Mike at the end. Pretty much, I want to say it was like the week after that. Whatever, I guess, is that the Kansas State game? I think Kansas State, BYU, one of those weeks is when Chubb got officially cleared. So we got to be one. Somebody's got to fact check. We got to be one of the only schools in the country where every quarterback on their rosters completed a pass in a game this season. Be a good stat to look up. All 5 of the guys.
Good, Jared. All right, thanks.
All right, appreciate you guys.